Welcome back. Today I'll be teaching you all about chemical changes. In this chapter, I'll be teaching you the difference between chemical and physical changes and how do you represent a chemical reaction using word and chemical equation. This is a pretty long chapter, so the third, fourth and fifth part will be covered in our upcoming video. So let's start. So before we proceed to the second part of the chapter, we must first learn what is the difference between chemical and physical changes. Can you name a few physical changes that you've seen in your day-to-day life? Okay, let me tell you what is physical changes first. So physical change is a change in which no new substance are formed. So with this clue, do you have any guesses? Okay, the two most common physical changes that we see in our day-to-day life is boiling and freezing. When you want to drink a hot beverage, you boil water, and during boiling, water is being transformed into water vapor, so liquid to gaseous state. And when you want to drink an ice cold beverage, you freeze some ice cube, and water is being changed from the liquid to the physical state. So in these two processes, no new substance are formed. Basically, water is being changed from one state to the other. So chemical changes is a change in which a new substance are formed. So can you think of any chemical changes in your life? One of the most common chemical changes is burning. So basically, when you're driving the car, when you burn fossil fuel, or basically when you're cold in winter and you want to burn a log, burning is actually a chemical changes. So the main difference between physical and chemical changes is physical changes can be easily reversed. Like in terms of boiling, you can just cool the water vapor back and you get liquid. And in terms of freezing process, you can easily reverse it by boiling or heating up the ice cube. Other separation techniques may include filtration. Okay, but chemical process is very difficult to reverse. So in terms of burning, when you burn wood in oxygen, you will form ashes, carbon dioxide, and water vapor. It is almost impossible to reverse the process unless you are Harry Potter. So in the whole process, they are basically the reactants and the product. So wood and oxygen in this case is the reactants, and ashes, carbon dioxide, and water vapor is the product. So all in all, this represents the word equation of the chemical changes. So before we learn more about chemical changes, this is a fun fact. Do you know that the mass is always conserved in a chemical reaction? A scientist actually is so bored that he went to do the following experiments for thousands of times. He burned a lot of wood in oxygen, he weighs them, and they realized that when he weighs the product of ashes, carbon dioxide, and water vapor, the mass remained unchanged. So who is this boring dude? It is the French scientist who lived in the 17th century. Okay, so what are the potential questions that they can test you in the MCQ context regarding physical and chemical changes? They may give you some of the changes and ask you to identify whether they are physical or chemical. So you know that melting of ice is physical. Chopping of wood is also physical. Mixing of vinegar and baking soda you may not know, but shredding of paper is clear it is physical, right? So the answer is actually out already. The answer is option C. Okay, but in MCQ, when you are unsure, you can actually use the process of elimination. Basically, you know that fireworks is a chemical reaction because something new is being formed. So any answer that contains option 4 is wrong. So basically, you can eliminate B and D. And it's basically a guess between A and C. So you have a 50% chance of getting it correct. But basically, when you mix vinegar and baking soda, bubbles are being formed, hence new products are formed. This process is usually used in cleaning. So if you run out of detergent at home, your mother or you may use vinegar and baking soda in the cleaning process. If you have not seen how the process works, just go and find some vinegar and baking soda in the kitchen and try it out yourself. So basically, a useful method to use in MCQ is elimination method, and it will increase your chances of getting the answer correct. Okay, so another possible question is, how will you represent chemical changes in word equation? So an example of the question may be, what will the product be formed when methane reacts with oxygen? So represent your answer in word equation. So basically, when methane is burned in oxygen, you will get carbon dioxide and water, and in this process, heat is needed. Okay, another common question or another example will be, what product will be formed when calcium carbonate is heated? And you can represent your answer in this way. Calcium carbonate, it will give you calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. And in this process, heat is also needed. The last question will be, what product will be formed when hydrogen reacts with oxygen? And this will produce you water. And in this process, no heat is needed. Okay, so when is heat needed and when is heat not needed? It depends on the equation, and you will find out more in the next part of the video. So besides from representing your answer in word equation, they may also ask you to represent the chemical changes in chemical equation. So in this case, methane is CH4 and oxygen is O2. Carbon dioxide is CO2 and water is H2O. So how will you know methane is CH4? You simply have to memorize. And why is oxygen always O2? Because oxygen does not exist in one atom. Oxygen, like hydrogen and most of the gases, actually you need to be two atoms forming together to be molecules in order for them to be stable. Okay, so basically once you have CH4 plus O2 giving you carbon dioxide and water, you need to balance out the equation. So by how you balance it is actually by adding a 2 in front of H2O. So the number of atoms of hydrogen on the left and on the right is being balanced out. So for calcium carbonate is CaCO3, and it will give you calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. Hydrogen and oxygen is always H2 and O2, and it will give you H2O. So if you're unclear about how do you write a chemical equation and how do you balance it, we will have a video that's just dedicated to this. Okay, so one last thing that you have to remember is all chemical equation must be balanced. So check your answer before you hand in to your teachers. If not, their butt will boil. Okay, the end. If you have learned something from this video, please like and subscribe to our video. Thank you.